Hello, I am Milad, and this is my presentation on my finished two-dimension game called Transcension that I've made for my capstone. Please enjoy. From a young age, I've always had a strong interest in playing video games and getting really good at them. But as I grew older and discovered coding, my focus moved from improving in games to improving in programming. My passion for development only increased with each app and each website I created. So naturally, I decided to major in computer science at Simon Fraser University this September. But something wasn't right. Doing small projects and coding as a hobby is far different from what my experience will look like once I start university. I needed to develop a project near a professional level to truly understand what I am getting myself into and to learn what approach and methodologies must be considered to create a complete programming project. But what kind of project could possibly achieve this? Well, a game, of course. As an avid gamer, I know what quality to expect and have access to many of my gaming friends for feedback. And so, on December 7th, 2024, I began my journey. Things started smoothly when I followed a tutorial to learn how to do animations. But then things derailed when I had to conquer the daunting task of creating the ground. If I widened the ground, it would visually stretch and look distorted. If I tried duplicating grounds next to each other, it would take unnecessary computer resources and be a very tedious process. This is when my research and critical thinking skills had to grow by using my first methodology to make a complete programming project. Brainstorm, research, execute, and repeat. I first brainstormed using a tool called a tile map, which would let me draw objects instead of building them discretely. I researched how to do it and executed it. Safe to say, it was a total disaster and it didn't fit my game. So I repeated the process again. This continued for many days until I decided to create one object with a repeating texture. I soon stumbled across a video that showed this feature and I successfully implemented it into my game. Fast forward a month and I finished my first level. It was now time to work on what made my game unique: the story. This game is a prison where the player is trapped inside their own mind and must conquer their self-doubt to escape from the darkness and into the light. After beating each level, they go and confront their self-doubt. This section required a dialogue tree. At first, I believed my dialogue was great, but it was only after I showed my dialogue on a Zoom meeting with my mentor for this project, Chad Fern, did I realize I was missing a piece of the puzzle. Something simple he asked stuck with me. It was along the lines of, how does the story read to the player? This made me reread my dialogue from an outside perspective, who doesn't know anything about the game like I do. This revealed discrepancies in my story and taught me my second methodology. When in doubt, look at your project from the perspective of an uninformed person. This also coincided with my final methodology: get feedback. This is because no matter how helpful thinking from a different perspective is, getting actual feedback can never be replaced. It was at this point where I completed a model with all the planned features and dialogue of my game. Even though I didn't always follow my initial planning one-to-one, I consistently referred back to my models for direction, which also helped me stay grounded and avoid getting overwhelmed. Using my three methodologies and planning models, I continued working on the levels of my game. My programming skills skyrocketed in this period of time. I had to create unique platforms, traps, and effects for each level. From moving saws to sentient killing machines to rotating lasers, there was never a dull moment. Most of all, I experimented and went out of my comfort zone. I created my own particle effects for the sentient killing machine detection radius, and later for the speed boost. I had no experience with Unity's particle system, and I didn't even watch a tutorial. In the final level, I took an even bigger leap out of my comfort zone. I was building the last level when I realized I had run out of art to use that fit the level's theme. So using the existing art as a drawing reference, I drew a platform and the rotating laser trap myself. I previously thought I was incapable of drawing, and yet by giving myself room to experiment and try new and fun things, I added my own touch to the art of my game. The end of my project was nearing, and now I had the formidable task of refining my game. Having organized code helped me tremendously with optimizing my game. For instance, I had separated each level's content and setup into different variables. Now, with only a few lines of code, I could disable all the content of levels aside from the current. This greatly improved the performance of my game, but still allowed me to keep all my levels in the same world. I got this idea from Minecraft, where you have a set render distance and anything past that point you couldn't see, greatly reducing the lag. Unfortunately, many of my game's features didn't work on other devices. For example, the video background in the mine just wouldn't load, and quitting the game would freeze the user's computer. It took many hours of research and testing, but I eventually fixed all those problems. In doing so, I learned specificity was really important in coding. For instance, the quit feature worked after I specified the action to only occur at the very end of the frame. This way it didn't interfere with other code, causing a meltdown. At the very end of my project, I figured out one last important tip for my future projects. This was to build more objects that would act as a general blueprint to replace some of my repetitive code. In the future, when I work on bigger projects, it will be even more critical for me to be an efficient programmer. I am very grateful that I took this opportunity in my last year of high school to challenge myself with an ambitious project and follow through. I learned what it truly takes to complete such a project. The only reason I got through this 5-month, 100-hour long project was an approach of passion. I didn't focus on how many levels I had to build, how much code I had to write, or how many bugs I would have to fix. I only focused on my in-the-present enjoyment of creating something I love. To reiterate, my approach and methodologies that must be considered to create a complete programming project are to brainstorm, research, execute, and repeat, to look at your project from the perspective of an uninformed person, to get feedback, and to approach the project with passion. My game is playable on all Windows and Mac devices, and you can find all attributions, information, and the download link on my Transcension GitHub repository page. Thank you for watching.